Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Haunted House. My name is Ghost, and welcome back to another episode of History with a Ghost. For today's episode, I want to continue the tank journey. I found a interesting tank for a interesting purpose, but sadly, it executed it poorly. It is a interesting mess of a tank. Today, we are talking about the M22 locust. Little disclaimer, dates are going to be wonky on this episode. I don't know many of the hard dates of these events. I've looked everywhere and couldn't find them. Either no one has bothered to preserve that info, or it's still redacted for some reason. For the first 2 years of World War II, Britain had been using the Tetrarch tank as its main tank for airborne operations, with the General Aircraft Hamilcar, a glider. The Tetrarch was a decent tank, but poorly performed with airborne operations as it was not built for that purpose. It had a bunch of other issues as well, like horrible armor and wires from the glider getting caught on the tank on exit. Because of this, the British War Office in early 1941 went to the US Ordnance Department and asked if they could build a purpose built tank for airborne operations that could fit in the glider and transport planes, which the Tetrarch couldn't do. The US said yes, and in May of the same year, went straight to Marmon and Harrington Company Inc., a vehicle manufacturer in America, and had them design a tank for them. The initial prototype of the M22 was called the T9, which was decent, but after the UK tested it, they demanded changes to the shape of the tank and other stuff. They did their thing, and in 1942, they created the T9E1. With the E1 version of the tank, they cut down a lot of its weight, removing a lot of features like its gyro stabilizer and the tank's turret power traverse. A gyro stabilizer is basically a compass system that can keep the turret straight at all times. It like balances it basically. Very good for rough terrain. And the power traverse is a spring system that also helps with stability of the turret and moving the turret. They just got rid of those because that makes sense. Let's get rid of all the things that make it good. That's a great idea. The E1 version of the tank was still riddled with issues, mainly to do now with the dumb idea of getting rid of its gyro stabilizer and its power traverse. The US hated the thing, they despised it. They originally planned to use it themselves, but once they realized how crap it was, they scrapped any plans for using it, except for training. But the UK still wanted it despite its issues for some reason. By September of 1944, the UK was given a total of 830 T9E1s. When they arrived, they were given the name M22 Locust. The M22 only took part in one major operation, Operation Varsity. Operation Varsity was a major airborne operation, part of another operation called Operation Plunder, which was a major offensive to cross the Rhine River. Operation Varsity is the biggest single day airborne operation in history. The mission of Operation Varsity was to help that main offensive by disrupting the enemy, capturing infrastructure vital for the Germans and themselves, cutting the Germans' communication, stopping offences from the Germans. Uh, they also had a objective to capture three bridges that went over the river. The US 17th Airborne Division and the UK's 6th Airborne Division were tasked with this operation. The 6th Airborne Division had 8 M22 locusts for this operation, of course. The US had none, but my god, was it horrible for the British. They were flown into German territory by a glider, of course. One tank broke free from its restraints and smashed out the back of the glider, killing people, which, sure, you could probably say that was just user error, not the tank's fault. But the exact same thing happened with another tank. As it landed, it flew out of the glider and landed upside down. Another tank broke down while trying to tow a jeep out of mud, apparently, and again, other tanks were damaged upon landing, breaking equipment inside and cracking the gun barrel with some of them. Out of the 8 tanks in the operation, only 4 made it to their intended location, and by the end of the operation, only 2 were operational. It was horrible. A couple months after the war ended, Britain got rid of their M22s and brought back the Tetrarch tank. Most of the tanks were scrapped, but some were repurposed or sold to other countries. Artillery units in the UK, uh, in the UK's military, used them as artillery pieces for a while. Belgium bought 1 tank, and Egypt would buy 50 of them off the UK, and they would be used in the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. About a decade later, they also retired them and scrapped all but a few. Out of the 830 made, only 16 survive today in museums and private collections all over. That's all the operational and development history. Now for the hard stats of the tank, which I bet you've all been waiting for. The M22 weighed 7 tons, was 3 meters long, 2 meters wide, and was a foot high. The front of the tank's armor was 8-inch thick. The turret also had an inch of steel all around, protecting the crew. The sides had 12 millimeters of armor. The back had 12 millimeters of armor as well as the roof. The tank was crewed by 3 people: commander slash loader, gunner, and driver. The main armament of the tank was a 37mm M6 cannon, and its secondary armament was a 7mm Browning M1919A4 machine gun. It could carry 50 shells for the main gun and 2,500 rounds for the machine gun. The engine of the tank was a Lycoming 0-43 5T 6-cylinder engine, which could produce 165 horsepower. It had a max speed of 40 miles per hour and had a max range of 135 miles. And that's about everything about the M22 Locust. Probably one of the worst tanks ever. It's just insane. But yeah, it's good to be back making videos. I've missed you all. If you liked this video, please give it a like and a follow. And I'll see you next time. Bye.